Pastor Luke, here we are.
Pastor Troy. Hello.
Lesson 23
23.
in your cursive handwriting
Yes.
and printing. It is, we've never recorded one of these videos in here.
No, we haven't.
This
not
is
yet.
Studio A.
the main studio.
The main studio, yeah. And I'm ready to go. We've got some different camera views here that we're going to try out as we go through this. This lesson is about Jesus.
Yes.
And it says Jesus, let me pull up here, Jesus later ministry. What does it mean by later? Like late at night?
Yeah, he liked to stay up late. I mean,
did.
he was a night owl.
Yeah, that's a little known fact about Jesus.
Yeah. No, Jesus' ministry was about 3 years, and this is the latter part of his 3-year ministry.
Toward the end.
Yeah. So
like the last year or last 6 months?
Yeah.
Or, okay.
So this is getting closer to Jesus' death and resurrection.
Okay.
Yep.
Which is really important part of the story, but the whole story is important.
And Jesus is actually, throughout his ministry, becoming less and less popular. More and more people are rejecting him as his ministry goes on.
Well, that doesn't sound good.
Yeah, kind of a bummer.
Yeah.
But, well, with that in mind,
Yeah, let's get started on this lesson.
so the opening question, what does it mean to be human? What do you think it means to be human, Pastor Troy?
Well, to be human, and I circled it on my page here, to be human is to have a body
Yeah.
and have a soul. To be a human is to be created in God's image. Am I on a start here?
Yeah, I mean, those are some of the things, what it means to be human. I
It's
think,
to have eyes.
yeah, it's to be, part of having a body is to have eyeballs.
Yeah, but not only because fish have eyes.
Yeah. So there's something unique about human beings. We are separate from the rest of creation, but we're also connected to creation. God made Adam out of the dirt of the ground. So we have a connection, but there's something unique about being human.
So that connection to creation, though, happens in and through our bodies.
Yeah.
Like, so the way that I can use my body, I mow my yard. We just planted a tree.
Yeah.
Is that part of it? I
Yes.
can hike.
Yes.
You and I have been hiking.
Yes.
You have your hiking hat on.
Yes. Yeah. So, what does it mean to be human? It means to work.
Right.
Human creatures are meant to work, whether it's mowing your lawn or going to your job or doing schoolwork. Those are all what we call vocations.
Yeah.
It means having relationships. It's not good for man to be alone.
Right.
So, marriage, family, friendships, these are all part of what it means to be human.
You can have a relationship also, though. It doesn't have to be only human relationships, right? Because you have 1, 2, 3 cats.
I do have 3 cats, and you have
2 dogs.
two dogs.
Yeah. And I kind of love them sometimes.
That's how I feel about my cats.
Yeah. Yeah.
Most days they're okay.
Right.
So yeah, we have relationships with the rest of creation, with animals, with pets. Pets can be a good thing, a good gift. So that's another thing. What else? Being a body means you need to eat, you need to sleep, you need to take care of your body.
Right.
Those are all good
You should
things.
take care of your body. Not everybody does, though.
Yeah.
Why do you think they sometimes don't?
It's hard.
Okay.
It's hard work to eat right, to exercise every day, to sleep right, to take care of every aspect of your health. Is a lot of work.
It is.
And it's easy to let one or many of those things go by when our lives are so consumed with busyness, our bodies get sick, all sorts of things get in the way.
And we're filming this during a time when we realize bodies get sick because we're in the middle of a coronavirus quarantine.
Pandemic.
Yeah. So our bodies are good gifts that God gives us, yet because of sin, our bodies don't work perfectly. The rest of creation still is not perfect. There are storms, there are viruses, there are animals that do things that they shouldn't. There are people that do things that they shouldn't. But still, God's creation is good. God is good. His creation is good. Our bodies are good things.
It's a good thing to be a human being.
Yeah.
And the proof of that,
Yeah, I knew you were going to get to that.
the proof of that, God himself becomes a human being.
Yes.
And which, Christmas Day, we usually celebrate little baby Jesus and how cute he is and all that. But the fancy term for that is the incarnation.
That's right.
Jesus becoming a human being is a huge, huge deal. It gives honor and worth to being a human being because God himself came down from heaven to be a human being just like you and me. He experienced the same things that we do. So
That makes me think of a song that I was singing to you just a minute ago. You came from heaven to earth to show the way.
I remember there's actions to it.
From the earth to the cross.
My
From the
debt to pay.
from the
Cross
to the grave.
From the grave to the sky.
Well, there's the resurrection in there.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, well, we'll
It-
just leave that
anyway.
out. Okay. I mean, it's still in here.
Yep.
But forget, okay.
So Jesus is human. He is both, I have written up here, he is both God and man. He's both God and a human being.
Let me go to the full screen view. Now
There
we
we
got
go.
it up there.
Yeah. So Jesus is both of these. He is fully God, but he's also fully human. He's fully man. So that Jesus is a unique person. And we'll see this a little bit in this lesson because we're going to be hitting a lot of different things throughout the Gospels. But if you want to know God the Father's heart, you look to Jesus.
Yeah.
If you want to know what it means to be human, how we ought to be as humans, we look to Jesus.
Is it ever bad to look to Jesus?
I don't think so.
You always
Yeah,
look to
it's
Jesus.
all about Jesus.
Turn your eyes on Jesus.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right, well, let's go ahead and dive in. So let's turn to page 94,
Okay.
top of page 94. And again, we're going to be kind of moving through these pretty quickly. So if you want, go ahead and feel free to pause the video and to look up the Bible passages and to read them. We strongly encourage you to do that. So top of page 94, Jesus foretells his death and resurrection. And I know, probably don't need to spend a ton of time with that, but Jesus did this several times actually in his ministry where he told his disciples that he was going to die, but also that he was going to rise again. The disciples never really got that. They didn't understand what Jesus was saying until afterwards. But there were a number of times where Jesus flat out told them, I'm going to die,
Yeah.
but 3 days later I'll rise again.
Right. But totally blew their mind.
Yeah.
They didn't get what that meant.
Yep. And who would have?
I'd like to say I would have, but I wouldn't.
Yeah. Yep. So, all right. Any other thoughts with that?
No, Pastor Luke, I'm distracted with trying to get the camera up here.
Oh, okay.
So his passion prediction. So what Jesus says, Jesus always fulfills his promises. Jesus is always true to his word.
Yep.
So if he says it's going to happen, it happens.
Yeah.
There's one thing I'm waiting for, though, that he said will happen that hasn't happened yet. And I'm not talking about Purdue. I'm not talking about the Colts. But there's one thing. You know what that one thing is? That hasn't happened yet, that he said is going to happen?
He's going to come back.
He's going to come back. But because every other thing he said has happened, I'm going to say with certainty, if he's 100% on his predictions so far, 100% he's coming back.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
And to think about, Jesus knows that he's going to die on the cross. He knows he's going to suffer terribly. But he still goes with it. He still obeys his Father, God the Father.
Right.
And it's just kind of bizarre to think, like, who of us would want to do that, would willingly go through that? I don't think any of us would. But that shows the difference between our sinful hearts and God's loving heart for us.
He always does what his dad tells him.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
He submits to the Father's
He
will.
trusts that what his dad wants is always the best thing. And so, but then as you just already said, in order to know what his dad wants and thinks, look at the Son, because they are perfect. They perfectly are a reflection of one another.
Yep.
Because they're the same. It's true God, true man, distinct persons, Father and Son, but they are always in sync with one another.
Yep. Jesus says, many times in the Gospel of John that he and the Father are one.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean that they're the same person,
Right.
but they are of the same mind and
The will of the Father is done in
Yeah.
and through the Son.
yes.
Yeah.
So, speaking of fathers and sons, the next section here, the prodigal son. Now, this is a parable that Jesus tells.
Here, I'll move us over here if I can
Okay.
grab onto it. Here we are.
How would you define a parable? Because Jesus teaches a lot through parables. So, what would you say a parable is?
Well, I mean, the definition that comes to mind quickly is an earthly story with a heavenly meaning. But then you and I have both been to the seminary, and that definition may be used, but there are probably others. But that's the one that comes to mind quickly, an earthly story with a heavenly meaning. Am I on the right track?
Yeah, I think so. I
Okay.
think that's a very good short definition of what a
Yeah.
parable is. I think, well, there's lots of different types of parables. Some are pretty easy to understand, some are not.
Right.
Sometimes Jesus explains the parable, sometimes he doesn't, which can be kind of annoying when Jesus doesn't. It's like, here's a parable.
Yeah, Jesus, just tell us what you mean by that. But, Jesus himself said, some people will hear the parables and it won't make any sense, which goes back to Isaiah chapter something. I wish I could remember. I used to know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and another thing about parables is that a lot of times they have different meanings. I don't think they always have just one exact meaning.
Sure.
They can have multiple meanings.
Yeah.
So they can hit us in different ways. Also, parables are, I keep losing my train of thought.
No stress, no pressure. You're on camera.
They, like you said, they're earthly stories. So there's usually something familiar about the story.
Right.
Whether it's about like a shepherd watching his sheep or whatever it might be. But then there's always something that's like obviously strange about
It's like
the
a
story.
surprise.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's always
Yeah.
at least
A
one
twist.
a twist to it.
Yeah.
That's like, well, that's weird.
Yeah.
So what's that about? And that's
Right.
I guess part of the fun of trying to interpret, understand what Jesus is using
Yeah.
for the parable. So, and we're going to go through a couple parables in this lesson. First one being the prodigal son. Kind of the lowdown, very quick version of it. There's a man who has two sons. The youngest son wants his inheritance
Right.
and says, "Dad, give me my inheritance," which is basically another way of saying, "Dad, I wish you were dead."
Yeah, because usually he wouldn't get it until his dad died.
Yeah.
But I can't wait that long, Dad.
Yeah.
I need it now.
Give me my money. It's my money, and I want it now.
I'm already kind of not feeling good about this son.
Yeah. And so what does he do? The father gives him his inheritance. He
Yeah.
goes off to a distant land. He wastes all his money on crazy living.
Yeah.
Parties, all sorts of stuff.
Right. Buying apps that he doesn't need. Well, I don't. They didn't
Yeah,
have
yeah,
apps
lots.
then. Yeah, whatever. Coins in a game that he doesn't play.
playing,
I don't know, whatever.
Yeah.
Something useless. He has nothing good to show for
Yeah,
it.
yeah. It's not good what he does with it. He blows all his money,
Right.
and then a famine hits.
That doesn't sound good.
Yeah, so no food. He doesn't have any money to buy food. And so he starts working for a pig farmer. And he actually starts wanting to eat the food that he's feeding to the pigs.
Right.
And finally comes to his senses like, well, I could at least go back to my father and work for him. At least his servants are taken care of. So he goes back, which I think he's still got kind of a scheme in the back of his mind. He's still going to try to work his dad a little bit. But so he goes back home. His father sees him, sees his son come back. What does his dad do?
Yeah, so I would think his dad, on the one hand, might say, hey, I gave you your inheritance. You thought that it'd be better if I was dead anyway. You're coming back here, forget about it. But no, his dad instead, the surprising thing, his dad loves him. His dad runs out to him. His dad, now this boy, kind of has a boy behavior.
Yeah.
This son should be ashamed of himself, but the dad runs out to him and takes the shame, takes the blame, essentially.
Yeah,
That's surprising that his dad would love him when he did not deserve his dad's love.
not at all. He wraps I think a robe around him. He gives him the
What
ring.
if he took his own robe off and dad stood there naked to draw the attention to himself so his son didn't have to be embarrassed? Wow.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy. So the father is showing extravagant love for his lost son. He has forgiven his son. He forgives his son even before his son doesn't even have an opportunity to ask for forgiveness.
Right.
Because I don't think the son wanted to anyway. But the father forgives him anyway, loves him anyway, brings him, welcomes him back into the family. And he throws a big party, a big feast for his son.
Right. Yeah, that sounds like maybe there's something to understand about God the Father and his love.
Yeah, so again, Jesus uses parables to teach something about God, about himself, about us. He's showing us the Father's heart towards us sinful human
Right.
beings, because we are all prodigal sons and daughters.
Yeah.
We are all lost sons and daughters. We have all rebelled against our Father in heaven, because we have an amazing inheritance, this creation,
Right.
and we use it in all sorts of terrible ways, selfish ways. But the Father still welcomes us back into his family through Jesus.
Yeah, and there's so much, and there's no way, we're already 15 minutes into our video now.
Yeah.
And we could talk about the other son, the other son who was faithful and he holds a grudge, and we
Yeah.
could get into that.
Yep.
And so when we look at the other parables like the Good Samaritan, there's a picture of this outsider who surprisingly cares for a wounded person when the other people walk by. There's a bunch to unpack there. So as you go through that, you as in you on
Yep.
the other side of the camera,
Yep.
as well as pay attention, because these are the sort of things that come up during the course of the year with our assigned readings when we say, here on the 20th Sunday after Pentecost, we encounter these readings. So pay attention to those. So that's about parables. What else do we have here, Pastor Luke, kind of as we go through?
Should we hit the transfiguration? It's on the top of.
Yeah, let me move this over, and
It's
then
smooth.
I'll move this
There we go.
back down. Ooh.
So I've always been curious about the transfiguration because I never really get it.
Yeah.
Like, why? What's the point of the transfiguration? So maybe take a step back. What was the transfiguration?
Well, the word trans means change. So when we think of transformers, they change their form. Transfiguration is the change of the appearance of Jesus. And as you can see on the screen here, Jesus,
He's got light.
yeah, so we see a picture. So Jesus took his best buddies, the three closest apostles, Peter, James, and John, up a mountain, and then he reveals to them, or God the Father, and then God the Father tells them. We see, because he's true God and he's true man, here's a picture where we're seeing he's true God. And it's a preview, I think, because I preached on this year. I think part of it, because St. Peter looks back in 2 Peter, one of his letters to Christians, and says he remembered being on the Mount of Transfiguration, and like that gave him comfort looking back to say, hey, this is Jesus, the one who was raised from the dead. He really is true God and true man, and I see that image, and he can't wait to see it again.
Yep.
Because we will see him return again in glory. This is the shortest version of that I can
pretty
do. I don't know if
exciting.
I answered it. Yeah.
So I think probably the biggest thing to take away with the transfiguration is that Jesus is fully God. He's not just a dude. He's
Right.
not just a special dude.
right.
He's also fully God.
Yes.
And at the transfiguration, we get to see a glimpse of his godness. You want to talk
And
about that?
on the page here where we see the cloud of glory comes down, and God the Father says, "This is my beloved Son. Listen to him."
So the Father tells us, he told Peter, James, and John, but also telling us, pay attention to Jesus,
Right. Amen. Always.
always. And then paying attention to Jesus, now he's, again, teaching in parables, but especially in the Gospel of John, he doesn't use as many parables, but he's just kind of directly teaching. He uses what's called a lot of the I am statements,
Yeah.
where Jesus will say, I am something, like I am the bread of life, I am the way, the truth, and the life, things like that. Now, what is so special about these I am, specifically I am statements?
Well, these I am statements are something that when we think all the way back to when Moses, when God reveals himself to Moses, he says, Moses, you're on holy ground, take off your shoes.
In the burning bush.
In the burning bush, yeah. So this is in the book of Exodus. And then Moses says, well, you want me to tell other people about you, but who am I supposed to tell them that you are? And what's your name? And so he says, my name is, and you've got it written up here, transliteration in English, Yahweh. Often it's just written. Is on the page here.
Oh, no.
Well, a lot of times it's just written YHWH because in Hebrew there are no vowels, but it's Yahweh, which means I am.
Or, as in Exodus, I am who I am, or I am that I am.
Yeah.
So, I am.
Yeah. So it's kind of a weird, funky name. Like, what's his name? His name's I am.
Yeah.
Which has so many, it's not I was, it's not I will be, it's I am, present tense. So when we talk about true God, and Jesus says I am, I am God.
Yeah.
And that's why they killed him.
Yeah. Because when Jesus starts saying things like I am,
Right.
or I am the bread of life, the Jews know what Jesus is saying.
Right.
They know that he is claiming to be God. And in their minds, that is complete blasphemy.
Yes.
And if anyone else would say that, it would be blasphemy.
Right.
If I were to say I am God, I mean, that's blatantly false.
Yes.
But Jesus is making this claim, but it's actually true.
Yes.
That Jesus is, he is I am. He is Yahweh.
Yes. Yes. And because God, when we think about creation, so God is outside of time. Time is part of creation. And we know this because a 24-hour period is when the earth makes one rotation, and then it revolves around the sun. So one rotation, 24 hours. One revolution around the sun is
365.
365 of those. 1 year.
Yeah.
So time is a part of creation, but God is outside of creation. That's why he is I am.
God just is.
There is no was to God, and there is no will be. He just is, and it blows my mind.
Yep.
But it seems awesome.
Yeah. Can't fully understand it.
Yeah.
But if we could fully understand God, he wouldn't be God.
Well, so the beauty is the way to understand who God is, back where we started, is Jesus.
Look to Jesus.
Because you can look at him and you can understand what a baby is, and you can understand that he wept. You can understand that he was angry that demons were tormenting people and that people were dying of disease.
People getting sick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we can understand what suffering is, that he came and died.
Yep.
We can understand that he's raised.
Yep.
Yeah.
So there's a lot with the I am statements.
We'll spend our whole lives trying to figure it out.
Yeah. So whenever Jesus says I am, pay attention to that. Well, pay attention to everything that Jesus says, but he's usually saying something really profound.
Yeah, so on Maundy, Thursday, we sang the I Am the Bread of Life song. There's a contemporary Christian song by Crowder called I Am, I think it's called I Am holding on to you.
Sure.
See, I think it's even better. It's not about I'm holding on to Jesus, but Jesus is holding on to me.
Yeah.
So anyway.
Okay. Well, moving on down, probably won't spend a ton of time with.
Yeah, because we're at a record length here,
Yeah.
Pastor Luke. Is this where we're supposed to be right here?
Well, just very briefly, Jesus raises Lazarus.
Oh, yeah,
We
that's
kind of talked
important.
about Jesus raised Lazarus from the dead. This is where we get the shortest verse in the Bible. Jesus wept.
Yes.
Even though Jesus knew that he was going to raise Lazarus from the dead, he still cries. He still weeps at the death of his friend.
Right.
Death is not the way. Death is not what God originally planned for human beings. It's a terrible thing. Death is always a terrible thing. But Jesus raises Lazarus from the dead.
And this also is where sometimes I literally say, well, death stinks. And because in the King James it says he stinketh, Lazarus stinketh.
Because he had been dead for 4 days.
Yeah, like death literally stinks. And it does stink anyway. So.
All right. Well, last page. So top of page 96. That first sentence there, it says, Jesus Christ is true God who came down from heaven and became true man. I would encourage you to highlight or underline that sentence.
Let me see if I can highlight it, Pastor Luke, here. This right here?
Yep.
This right here?
Yes, that's it.
Let's see what happens.
Perfect.
Why is it looking like a weird brown color? I don't like that.
Hopefully you can
Whatever.
pick a bit better color than that.
I don't know how to make it different. Okay.
Well, and so we have
Can't
this
fix it.
this pretty helpful picture of, true God, true man, both of those in the person of Jesus.
Here, I'll put us back. Oh, I moved it in the wrong way. This is what happens when we're doing this in real.
Yep.
Okay. Do you want to point at anything on there?
Just that again, we've already said this, but in the person of Jesus, we see both God and what it means to be a true human being.
This thing right here.
Yep.
Okay.
All right. And then I guess we'll close with the Christ connection at the bottom of the page. Jesus Christ, true God, creator with God from the beginning, became man to fulfill the law on our behalf, to die, paying the punishment for our sin, and to rise from the dead, so that one day we will also rise to eternal life with him.
Yep, that's what it says, and I can't get it to show up on the screen, Pastor Luke,
Well,
because it's too far up on the
Oh.
screen. Here. There it is. Okay.
well, maybe.
All right. Now they see it.
Yes.
We'll go back here in the wide shot. This is our longest one of these lessons ever.
Yeah. Well, and there's just so much to talk about with
There is.
Jesus.
It's a great lesson in all the I ams. They're cramming a lot in here. Hey, it's still shorter than it would have been if they would have been in class with us.
Oh, yeah. So you're welcome.
Yeah. And you're mostly for Jesus, and we're thankful for Jesus.
Yes.
So we'll wrap up here then, lesson 23
Yep. In the books.
in the books. We will look forward to seeing you again. Actually, I say seeing you. We do want to see you again when you come back here.
Yep.
But I guess in some sense we'll see one another in
We'll
this
see
video.
you virtually.
Yeah, whatever that is.
Yeah.
All right. Hey, see ya.
Bye.